The season is almost here. We are just days away from training camp, and then days away from preseason, and less than a month away from the start of the regular season. And that means it's that time again where ESPN, Bleacher Report, all those guys start talking about the best players in the NBA. Of course, they start ranking them. Let's talk about where they ranked Zach Lavine and some of the guys that some people are arguing are better than him. I'm Ross, this is Arturo's Fan Club, and hey man, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button if you guys support my videos. It helps me out a ton. If you want to join the Super Fan Club, it is only $4.99 a month for exclusive content, early access to videos, all kinds of cool perks, and shout out to our Super Fan of the Day. So, Zach Lavine, continuously, throughout the years, this isn't anything new. I'm not telling Bulls fans something they don't already know. Zach Lavine has been disrespected by the national media. He has been overlooked by fans who don't watch the Bulls, and it makes sense. The Bulls weren't winning. There wasn't a lot to write about. There wasn't a lot to talk about. Obviously, a very good player, but on a team that was bad, wasn't doing enough to make them better. Totally valid, totally get it. Not going to argue with that. But coming into this season, I think things are a little bit different. And I would argue it's time to finally give Zach Lavine the recognition and the credit that he deserves. Because what he did last season was ridiculous. And it was better than a lot of the players that people are arguing are better than Zach Lavine. And not just like slightly better. We're not talking about like, you know, the difference between the 15th best player and the 14th best player. We're talking about, you know, 20 spots in the list. We're talking the difference between 33 and 11. Okay? So I just want to point out real quick before we get into this. Ranking players is dumb. I posted this on Twitter the other day. Ranking players is stupid because players have, every player plays a little bit differently. These guys, you're just ranking it from the pool of NBA players. You're not ranking them by position or by game style. You're ranking players against each other who play totally different roles for their teams. And also, it's all arbitrary. It's not based off of stats or game film. You know, this is just how they're voted in. It's not like there's a team of people combing over all of the stats and all of the tape to give you the most accurate list of the best players. It's voted on. So I don't know, man. There's just so much margin for error there. You know, there's so many people that could be voting that don't really look into this, don't look into the stats, don't look into the game tape, don't look into the players like Zach Lavine who are on worse teams. But obviously that's going to change this season. So what I wanted to do was go through the guys that I've seen people compare Zach Lavine to and try to make my case for Zach Lavine being the better player. Because looking at the stats this past season, you can make a case for all of these guys that Zach Lavine was better than them. The first guy I want to start with is Bradley Beal. And the reason I want to start with Bradley Beal is because, like I said, ESPN ranked Zach Lavine 33rd overall. They ranked Bradley Beal number 11. Okay? I think there's a case to make that Bradley Beal is better than Zach Lavine, but not by that much. It's way closer than that. So Bradley Beal averaged 31.3 points, while Zach only averaged 27.4. Bradley Beal had an insane scoring season. He went on a tear. Very impressive. Absolutely gets the edge in that regard. But Zach Lavine beat him in efficiency by a lot. Kind of blew him out of the water with efficiency. Zach had an effective field goal percentage of basically 60%, while Beal's was right around 53%. Now, I know a lot of people are like effective field goal percentage or true shooting. I don't believe in all that stuff. You can go look at the raw numbers. Zach Lavine was way better on every single shooting metric outside of free throws. So whatever metric you prefer, Zach Lavine beat him in. I just went with effective field goal percentage just to show you the difference between 60 and 53%, which is a pretty wide margin. Zach also averaged more assists and rebounds. Zach is a slightly better on-ball defender, which I think that edge on defense brings the scoring gap a little bit closer, plus the efficiency. You know, averaging so much points for Bradley Beal, like I said, is very impressive, but I feel like the other factors bring Zach even closer and potentially push him over the top for Bradley Beal. And a common theme you're going to hear throughout this video, Bradley Beal made the playoffs, Zach did not, Bradley Beal also played on a team that had Russell Westbrook, that had probably better overall players than the Bulls were playing with, at least in the first half of the season, before, you know, the Bulls acquired Nikola Vucevic. And after acquiring Nikola Vucevic, Zach gets COVID, is out for 11 games. There's just such an asterisk on the second half of the season, not being able to practice with his new teammates, you know, all of the turmoil and turnover. The second half of the season is so hard for me to really give a fair shake to, just because there's so much weirdness involved with it. So I'm going to focus mainly on what we've seen, I guess what we've seen throughout the entire season. But when we're talking about Zach as being the primary or sometimes only scoring option, you know, before the trade deadline, before acquiring Nikola Vucevic, his second best scoring option was Kobe White, I guess. Not great. It wasn't good. It wasn't very good. And Kobe White was definitely struggling with his new role as point guard. There's so many different things. I know I'm making excuses, but what I'm trying to illustrate to you is that Zach Lavine was the guy. Defenses keyed in on Zach Lavine every single night. Okay? Double teaming him, hedging him. Like, there was a concerted effort every single night to slow down Zach Lavine, right? Like, that's what you do to the best player on a bad team. Try to get these other guys who aren't very good to beat you. And 9 times out of 10, the other guys on the Bulls were not beating anyone. But with all of that said, with all of those things happening, Zach Lavine still had an insane scoring season comparable to what Steph Curry did this season, okay? Like, you go look at the stats, it's actually pretty comparable. Now, Steph averaged more threes. Steph is insane, obviously. We know that. We know this. Steph made the play-in tournament. We know this. But Zach Lavine, once again, is up there in the conversation with Steph Curry, which is crazy to think about. And that's kind of the point I'm trying to make here by bringing up the playoffs and Russell Westbrook and all that stuff. Bradley Beal was playing with better players. Zach Lavine was not. Zach Lavine was the guy, and defenses were trying to stop him, and he still managed to do all of this great stuff. I don't know. I mean, you could also make the argument technically that Bradley Beal, you know, doesn't get as many offensive opportunities because the other better players that are on his team. I don't know. I don't subscribe to that theory. I subscribe to the idea that if a defense is keying in on a guy and they're still able to do this, that guy must be pretty damn good and potentially better than a guy who we haven't seen do that in a similar circumstance. Like we hear the argument all the time, like, well, Zach Lavine's never played in playoffs. I can't say he's better than Donovan Mitchell. Well, I've never seen Donovan Mitchell play on a team without Rudy Gobert and without Bogdanovich and without Ingles and without all these guys. Well, let's get into Donovan Mitchell now that I brought him up. Zach Lavine beats him in points per game, efficiency, rebounds, value over replacement player, and box plus minus. Those stats tell me that Zach is the superior scorer on offense, is what I'm getting out of that. Donovan Mitchell is the better passer. He averaged more assists and fewer turnovers, and likely is a better on-ball defender. Some of the defensive stats swayed in his favor. Also, just watching the guy, you can see probably a little bit better than Zach in that regard. This one is close, and I would say it might even be closer than Bradley Beal, just because in terms of scoring, Zach takes the edge, but then you know, with passing and defense, Donovan Mitchell is right there with him and probably a little bit better. You know, once again, it goes back to the team that Donovan Mitchell plays on, you know, playing with complementary players, playing with an elite rim protector like Rudy Gobert. You know, Zach's never had the benefit of playing with an elite rim protector like that. Zach's never played alongside complementary shooters like Bogdanovich and Ingles, guys who can get, you know, 17 to 20 points a game. Like, Zach's never had that up until now. So when you look at Donovan Mitchell, like, once again, I know you can say that Zach's never been to the playoffs, and, you know, we can't compare Zach Lavine to a guy like Donovan Mitchell who's been to the playoffs. Well, you can't really compare Donovan Mitchell to a guy like Zach Lavine when Donovan Mitchell hasn't played on a team that is that bad as the Bulls have been in the past couple seasons. So once again, I give Zach a little bit of an edge here because Zach has always been the guy, you know? There is no other defensive attention being taken away by players like the ones I just mentioned. This is what I'm trying to say, man. Like, Kobe White is not getting the kind of defensive attention that Zach Lavine is. It's just the truth. So when I look at Donovan Mitchell, I see a very good player. I see a very good scorer. I see a guy who has turned it up in the playoffs to a new gear, and extremely impressive. I can't wait to watch Zach Lavine in the playoffs because I think he'll show you something similar. The next guy I was going to talk about was CJ McCollum. But then I looked at the stats, and it's like not even close. There's really no point in comparing the two. Zach just blows them out of the water in every single statistical category. And once again, CJ plays with Damian Lillard. CJ's a little bit older, kind of regressing a little bit. There's really no point in comparing them. Zach is clear of CJ McCollum. And now our last guy. Yeah, you knew it was coming. The guy that Zach gets compared to all the time, Devin Booker. A guy who, before the Suns acquired Chris Paul, was a lot like Zach Lavine, at least in the national narrative, was talked about a lot like Zach Lavine. Now, I know that these guys are a popular comparison to each other. I would argue that they have different games, and I understand that, like, yeah, you know, you've got two guys who are really good scorers, really good shooters. Obviously, they're similar, but I would say that Devin Booker's game is based a little bit more on skill and finesse, while Zach's is a little bit more on just overpowering you with a barrage of different scoring abilities. And Devin Booker is a really good player. I just want to point that out before I tear him to shreds. Because Zach beats him, once again, in basically every major statistical category this past season. Zach scored more points on significantly better efficiency, had higher win shares, better value over replacement, more assists, more rebounds, etc., etc. Like, I would even argue Zach is a better passer and defender than Devin Booker. He had a higher assist percentage, better defensive box plus minus. Basically just shows you that while Zach is on the court, he is positively impacting his teammates on both ends of the floor, be that through getting them the ball. The assist percentage, like I said, I think is about 23% to Devin Booker's 20%. And then the defensive box plus minus, which was significantly better, showing us that Zach's defense, while not being elite, is still better than average, and Devin Booker's is not quite up to par. You know, once again, you go back to the playoffs argument, and once again, we talk about guys like Chris Paul and DeAndre Ayton. Like, Zach Lavine has never played with a guy nearly as good as Chris Paul up until now. So, I mean, hey man, like, it's kind of the same argument for all these guys. Zach has never played with guys like this, but he has still put up stats on par or better than all of these players on way worse teams, dealing with the best defenders every single night. You got to be fair to Zach Lavine at some point. What he's done, despite all of the hurdles and obstacles, is nothing short of amazing. It really is. It's indicative of a player who finally deserved to have a team built around him. Up until now, Zach Lavine has never played with guys like Chris Paul, Rudy Gobert, Damian Lillard, Russell Westbrook, etc., etc. Every guy we've talked about today has had the benefit of playing next to another star. Sometimes those stars are even better than the guys we were talking about. In the case of Damian Lillard with CJ McCollum, I mean, you can make the argument Chris Paul is even better than Devin Booker, or was more important to their winning this past season. You know, before they got Chris Paul, Devin Booker was seen as like an empty calories kind of guy. Zach Lavine gets the same kind of criticisms. But, you know, with all of that said, Zach Lavine needs to win to make all of this come true. Yes, even though I just argued that the stats kind of sway in his favor, he will not be taken seriously from the national media, from fans outside of Chicago, until he makes a name for himself in the playoffs. Just the truth. I encourage you to come back to this video later in the year, see how wrong I was, see how right I was potentially, because I do think this is the season, man, where Zach will have the opportunity to really show the NBA world how good he is. Like, hoopers know. You see it, basketball players know when they talk about Zach Lavine. Like, Kevin Durant, you heard him talk about it. Just the way that he has a reputation in the league. Basketball players know it, but fans, I think, are still a little bit late to the game because people weren't watching the Bulls. It's just the truth. They weren't good. People weren't watching the team. I get it. But this is the season where Zach Lavine has the opportunity to prove people wrong. Chip on his shoulder, team built to his strengths. I mean, it's now or never. I have full faith that with this revamped roster, Zach will show the world what Bulls fans are already thinking. And hey, I am just the messenger, okay? Don't shoot me if you don't like what you're hearing. I'm just reading the stats from Basketball Reference. I'm letting you know that Zach Lavine, statistically, is maybe the second best shooting guard in the NBA. Now, will he turn that into wins and into playoff wins, potentially? We're gonna have to see. But this is the time to do it. And I'm really, really excited to see what he's able to do. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you enjoyed hearing me talk about Zach Lavine, make sure to hit that like button. If you want to join the Super Fan Club, it's only $4.99 a month. And if you want to buy shirts, merch, mugs, tumblers, all kinds of really cool stuff, arturisfanclub.com/shop is the place to do it. Thank you guys again for watching, and we will talk very soon.